viewers, you're welcome to this very special interview with one of our mayoral candidates running for the city of Houston, Mr. Sylvester Turner. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well.
Wonderful. So, the elections are coming up next week.
November the 3rd is the final day for people to cast their vote in this election.
Wonderful. So, of course, we've already had early voting started already.
Yes, early voting, of course, goes through or went through October the 30th, Friday. And then the final day for people to cast their vote in their individual precincts is November the 3rd.
Awesome. I know your anticipation is building.
I'm excited about the city of Houston. I'm very bullish on the city of Houston. Great city. And hopefully Houstonians will give me the opportunity to represent them and serve them as their mayor.
Good. Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm here, is to poke around in your mind and be able to tell the viewers exactly what you're thinking. So, what is the priority on your agenda for Houston?
Look, this is the most diverse city in the country. There's no other city that's more diverse. We're more diverse than the city of New York.
That's right.
And I think what's important is for diversity. Let me put it this way: diversity is a descriptive term, but I think the more important term is inclusion. You know, people, we want to be diverse, but at the same time we want to be inclusive.
That's
People
right.
want to feel as though that they are a part of the workforce. They are a part of benefiting from the economic opportunities that flow from the city when it comes to services that they are a part of. So I think it's important for every community, whether it's the African community or Asian or African American, Hispanic, you name it. People want to be a part of the decision-making apparatus of the city of Houston. And if given the opportunity to be mayor, I want us to be diverse, but at the same time, I want us to be inclusive.
That's awesome. I'm very happy to hear that that's, top on your list. So that brings me to my next question.
Yes.
As an African, now living in the United States, I've reason to believe that Africans in diaspora, especially here in the city of Houston, even though we live in a very diverse city,
Yes.
We tend not to feel obligated to be part of the electoral process.
Okay.
So I know that it's a cultural thing, but I feel like you said inclusion is also one of the issues. What do you think you can do to make Africans feel more included in the electoral process?
Well, one thing, just like we're appearing here on this television station, that's number one. Number two, I think it's important for those of us who aspire to be leaders in the city, especially to be the mayor, to reach out.
Okay.
I think that's important to visit, for example, African churches. That's important. To talk with the African Chamber. Look, I am very pleased to have received the endorsement of the African Coalition Political Action Committee.
Wow.
Okay, so that's important. This is a diverse city, but diverse doesn't necessarily mean that it's a welcoming. And so I think it's important, for example, if given the opportunity to be mayor of the city, I want the city to be welcoming. I want the city to be inviting. So I'm inviting people in the African American community to be at the table. I'm not waiting for you to come and ask me. I'm extending my hand and saying, look, we come from all over the globe. We live in the most diverse city in the country.
Right.
And I am inviting people from the African community to be at the table of decision making, to be a part of boards and commissions and task force, to have that continuous dialogue with me if given the opportunity to be mayor. I think that's what's important. I think that's what people are looking for. And that way people can speak for their own community. If you're at the decision-making table, you're not just relying on me, but if you have I'm saying, look, you have a voice, use it. You're doing things in this community, be a part of it, help to shape the future of this city by being a part of it. So let's be diverse, but I want to be very welcoming and very inclusive. And I extend the invitation to those who are listening, to those who are out there, to come and join me in helping to build a city that includes you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to accept that invitation on
Good.
behalf of my
Are you ready to
people.
endorse me?
That's a personal matter. I'm going to leave that to the ballot on Saturday.
Okay.
But thank you for what you've said. And so Houstonians, that means that you now have an opportunity to
Yes.
be part of the Houston City Council if you want to. Go through the process. Find out what it takes to climb up into the electoral
Yes.
process and also become part of it. And of course, our
Soon-to-be mayor.
Soon-to-be mayor, Mr. Turner here has promised that
look, we call
he will
those
make that happen.
We call those things that are not as though they are.
Wonderful.
Okay. And look, I'm not just interested in being the mayor of the city of Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I am interested in being a transformative mayor for a transformative time.
Okay.
I don't want people to compare me to yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is where we are, and we have a future ahead of us.
Right.
Well, let's work to make the future brighter than its past.
Right.
And I recognize that there are many people in our community who feel left out or not a part of, not just Africans. They're African Americans in neighborhoods that feel as though that they have been ignored.
Wow.
There are Hispanics who feel as though they are not included. Same thing with Asians. But if we're going to be a world-class international city,
Right.
then it's time for us to be acting like a world-class international city. And so when people are looking at boards and commissions, those boards and commissions needs to reflect the flavor and the faces of the diversity within this city. When that happens, then you no longer have, you can no longer criticize the city of Houston for not being inclusive when you're sitting at the table.
That's right.
And if you're sitting at the table and if you're not representing your community of interest, you can't blame me.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for that. People want to know what Proposition 1 is. What is Proposition 1? We have so much in the media about Prop 1, but it seems to me like the media's attention is not complete. Can you shed some more light on Proposition 1?
Yeah, first let me just say that there are 3 Proposition 1s on the ballot. Okay. There's the Proposition 1 that deals with the state, and that pertains to homestead exemptions, and I hope people will vote for that Proposition 1.
Okay.
There's the Proposition 1 dealing with the county,
Okay.
and that's dealing with bond money for parks for Harris County. Okay.
For improvements and
For
things
improvements
like
of that nature.
Okay.
So that's Prop 1 for the county.
Okay.
Then at the very back of the ballot, there's Proposition 1 pertaining to the city of Houston, what we refer to as the HERO Ordinance.
Okay.
Now let me just say with respect to that one, the very last one, the Proposition 1, which there has been a lot of talk about.
that? Yeah, that seems to be the one that
Right.
has the media's attention.
Right. It is a non-discrimination ordinance.
Okay.
It is similar to many ordinances that exist throughout the country. It covers 15 different groups of people.
Okay.
For example, it says that you cannot discriminate against someone based on their race or ethnicity.
Okay.
You cannot discriminate against someone based on their age. You
Okay.
can't discriminate against someone based on their religion or whether or not they're a veteran or a pregnant woman. There are 15 groups that are covered. Gender, for example.
Okay.
So when it comes to contracting, employment, housing, you cannot discriminate. Now, what has gotten the most attention is that last group that deals with transgender population.
Okay.
Okay. And that's what concerns a lot of individuals.
Right.
But let me quickly say to you that it was against the law in the city of Houston for a man to go into a woman's restroom for illicit purposes
Right.
before the ordinance.
Right.
It remains against the law
Okay.
for a man to go into a woman's restroom for illicit purposes after the ordinance. That has not changed. That remains the same.
Okay.
But it is that portion of the ordinance that essentially says that you cannot discriminate against people who identify as transgender.
Right.
It is a population that is not very well understood. It raises some concerns, but from my point of view, is that I have a very difficult time discriminating against anyone based on group affiliation.
Okay.
And that's why you have the Houston Urban League supports the ordinance. The Houston chapter of the NAACP supports the ordinance. The Greater Houston Partnership, which is the business community in the city of Houston, supports it. The Hispanic Chamber supports the ordinance. And quite frankly, when we're looking at bringing the Super Bowl to the city of Houston in 2017 and the NCAA basketball championships here, people do not want to send a message to the rest of the world that the city of Houston, the most diverse city in the country, that we are still at the point that we would discriminate against anyone based on group affiliation.
Okay, so is it possible to separate that particular ordinance that concerns people, the transgender one?
Transgender.
Because it seems to me like once you vote for Proposition 1, you're voting for all three. If you vote for Proposition 1, essentially you're saying that you cannot discriminate against any group. Okay.
When it comes to contracting, employment, and housing, you cannot do it. Now, the fine is a $5,000 fine. Okay? It's a $5,000 fine. And really the difference is that instead of having to go out and hire a lawyer and take 2 years to prosecute that case,
right.
Essentially what this does is that you don't necessarily have to hire a lawyer. You can file your complaint. It is investigated. If it's found to be valid, it's a $5,000 fine. I understand people's concern,
right,
because the ordinance was defined very, very early as "quote unquote" a bathroom ordinance,
right,
and it takes a long time to try to explain people that it is against the law for a man to go into a woman's restroom or a shower, whatever, for illicit purposes. It is still against the law.
Okay.
But what we find oftentimes, politically speaking, if it takes me a long time to explain it, then I'm already on the losing end. Because it's easy to say bathroom, okay?
Right.
And it's easy to talk about transgender, and people don't understand it. What I would simply say to people is that, look, we're a diverse city. Can you exclude that population and that'll make people more comfortable? Yeah, you can exclude it. It'll make some people more comfortable. But what I would like to say, today it may be this population.
Right.
Tomorrow it could be Asians. It could be Hispanics. It could be Africans. It could be African Americans. Whose group next time? So I am very reluctant to discriminate against anyone based on group affiliation. And what I would say as an elected official, and if given the opportunity to be mayor of the city of Houston, on the road that I build as a mayor, everyone is entitled to ride on my street. Sinner, saint, rich, poor, it matters not. Now, what people do with them when I get them, for example, to their churches,
right,
that becomes the sanctity, the business of that church. But on the road that I build in this city, everyone is entitled to ride. Whether people vote for me or not, they're entitled to ride on the street that I build. Whether you are sinner or saint, rich or poor, you're entitled to build. So, I'm proud of the city. It's a diverse city. I would ask people, take a look at it, and then people have to vote their own conscience.
Well, thank you very much for that. And that brings me to my next question, which is the issue of the economy.
Right.
Can you explain how you intend to boost the economy of the city of Houston if you're elected mayor? And
I would love to. And let me just say this, as we talk about the economy, which directly impacts your pocketbook, okay? It directly impacts your quality of living. The economy is, to me, will have a more direct impact on you than Proposition 1 that we just finished talking about. And it's unfortunate that we are spending a lot of time on talking about a subject matter like Proposition 1 that, quite frankly, is not going to impact your standard of living at all. What does impact your standard of living is whether or not you can find opportunities in this city, if you're in business, to expand your business. And I want people who are in business to be put in a position to expand their business, to add to their capacity. to take advantage of the opportunities that exist through this city.
Right.
That will impact business owners as well as the people that they employ, as well as the communities in which they reside. People want better jobs.
Right.
There are a lot of people who are still making a minimum wage. That's not enough to take care of them families and not enough to take care of them. And so certainly I would want to take measures to increase, for example, the minimum wage, or at least to argue for it.
Okay.
You know, we'll have to change the law in Austin in order for that to happen at the legislature, but we need to do that.
Okay.
We need better jobs, better businesses, more businesses coming to the city.
Okay.
I didn't like the fact that we lost Exxon to the Woodlands. I would have loved for Exxon to be within the 640 square miles of the city of Houston.
Okay.
So we need to expand capacity there.
Okay.
But there are a lot of opportunities that are taking place in construction, transportation. Let me say transportation. I'm vice chair of the Appropriations Committee in the Texas Legislature.
Okay.
We have taken measures to add billions of dollars to the Texas Department of Transportation. There will be a lot of work on 610, 59, I-45 in transportation. The high-speed train between Dallas and Houston, that's scheduled to start construction in 2017.
Wonderful.
Billions of dollars will come into our area, and thousands of jobs will be created. At Intercontinental Airport, they're building a new terminal. United is putting in more than $1 billion at Intercontinental Airport. We're building a new international terminal there. So a lot of work is going to take place there. Hobby is now an international airport. Ellerton Field is poised to be an aeronautical center. The spaceport, we're looking at putting that down there. That's going to create opportunities. The medical center is continuing to expand,
right.
A world-class medical center. So things are happening there. Manufacturing is booming. So even though we may be facing depressed oil prices as it relates to oil and gas, Houston has become much more diverse in terms of the economy.
Right.
And I think we are positioned well to do well down the road. I want to keep that going. I think that's important, and I think you're going to see opportunities for people all over. And then I don't want to leave out international trade. We need more direct flights to places beyond the boundaries of the United States, specifically coming from Houston. We need to reach out to more countries, establish more sister-to-sister relationships. I think that's important. Quite frankly, I would like to establish an international department just within the city of Houston, where we beef up our protocol, and we're being much more aggressive at sending business trade teams outside of the country and inviting others to come to the city of Houston. The Port of Houston is still number 1 and number 2 in the world in many different categories. The Panama Canal is opening up. So, I'm very excited about the future of the city of Houston. And then I think it's important for us to be able to sell what we have, to market what we have. We got a lot that we can work with, but it's important to be able to sell it across the globe.
Wonderful. It's interesting that you've mentioned the Port of Houston.
Yes.
And I'm very proud of the work that is, being done through the Port of Houston,
Yes.
especially because the port was managed for a long time, maybe upwards of 15 years, by someone who happens to be, originally from Nigeria. And I'm very proud to say that there's a lot of activity, international trade going on through the Port of Houston,
Yes.
Shipping and all kinds of things going on there. So that definitely would, be a issue that us Africans would, be very interested in, because we would want to see, what other opportunities can come out of expanding the Port of Houston in terms of capacity, in terms of different lines of, services leaving and coming in through the Port of Houston. So it's very interesting what you've talked about, and I'm very happy that you're thinking along those lines.
Well, look, I am eager to build on the relationships that we have and creating new relationships with countries in Africa.
Awesome.
Whether we're talking about Nigeria or Kenya, or South Africa,
right.
You name it. I think the opportunities are endless. But we have to recognize the opportunities, and then we have to aggressively pursue it. And I think the fact that we are the most diverse city in the country speaks well. I think what will speak even louder is that if we are the most inclusive.
Right.
And if we are the most inclusive, then I think we are poised to be much more aggressive
Right.
in reaching out to countries outside of the United States and inviting them to do business here, and at the same time us taking businessmen and women here and going to those countries outside. So that's what I mean when I talk about being transformative. I'm not interested in being an incrementalist where you do a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit there, and at the end nobody can see the little bit that you have done. What I am interested in doing is being a transformative person, a transformative mayor that takes our city beyond where it has been and really thrusting us into the mainframe of conversation. I don't like being second to New York or LA or Atlanta or DC. I think we are a very resourceful city, very talented city, and I think it's about time that we showcase it all over the globe.
You're right. I don't think we're going to have an issue with pursuing that aggressively because you have a lot of Africans. Africans are known worldwide to be very hardworking.
Yes.
I think they're the most hardworking in the workforce, and you're obviously very ready to include them.
Well, I'm ready.
So
I am ready. I just need Africans to vote for Sylvester Turner. That's what I'm looking. I'm looking. This is my camera right here. I am asking for African to be supportive, to join with the African Coalition Political Action Committee, and then let's move this city forward into the future.
Let's move this city forward.
Good.
Awesome. So
I got your support, right?
Yes, you got my support.
Oh.
Okay. I have another issue that I want to tackle you on.
What's that?
What do you think is the best way to strike a balance between those who feel like they should have unlimited access to, guns and ammunition, and those who feel that, gun control is a huge issue in the United States, and especially in the city of Houston, so much is going on in terms of crime.
Right.
Especially lately, every time you turn on the TV set, you're gonna hear about somebody being shot randomly on the street, and different things like that. So, how can you best strike a balance between, the issue?
Well, Americans are just very obsessed with their guns. Americans are obsessed. Texans are very obsessed. When people even think that you are thinking about taking away their guns, they flip out. And quite frankly, the conversation has not been about taking away people's guns.
Okay.
It's how do we make society safer? Recognizing that people, will fight tooth and nail to hold on to the Second Amendment, their right to bear arms. But that doesn't mean that we cannot be safer and be more secure.
Okay.
Having background checks, I think, is critically important.
Okay.
Being able to close some of the loopholes that would allow people to buy guns via the internet or at these gun shows, I think will be helpful. But I think it's difficult to answer that question when the Texas legislature, for example, just this year voted for open carry, and then voted for campus carry, to basically say to colleges and universities, you must have a designated space on your college campus to allow kids 21 years or older with a concealed handgun permit to carry a gun. So, it is mind-boggling where the American society is. We have more gun violence than almost any other country in the world.
Right.
So that's a difficult one. For me. I do think we need more background checks. I do know we need to close loopholes. I do know that we need to prevent people from being able to buy guns randomly.
What about education? Because I also strongly believe that if you train up a child in the way that they should go, when they're older, they will not depart from it. I think that that's a strategy that most people are not even looking into when it comes to the issue of gun control. What do you think about?
Well, I think education is always good, but there's a culture within our American society that glamorizes the use of guns. It's kind of difficult to tell a child what not to do when their parents or those older are doing them.
Okay, but in what way do you think that you can actually positively turn this issue around, because it is an issue, especially here in the city of Houston? I mean, what would you do if you were elected mayor that would settle people's minds and let them know that you're doing something about the violence that comes out of an obvious lack of gun control right now?
Well, education, of course, is important, but also trying to create safe communities, trying to create safe parameters around colleges and universities.
So how would you? What are the things you would put in place to make sure that people feel safer in this community?
Well, we have fewer police officers today than we had 10 years ago.
Okay.
In the city of Houston, we only have about 5,300 police officers.
Okay.
That's fewer police officers than we had 10 years ago, and 1,900 of them are eligible to retire right now.
Wow.
So we certainly need more police.
Okay.
We need more, what we call, under Lee P. Brown, when he was mayor, he instituted community policing, having more police work in various neighborhoods, making sure that the police force was well diversified,
Okay.
and was representative of communities throughout our city. And where in community policing, police officers got to know that neighborhood and the people in those neighborhoods, and they got to know the police themselves.
Okay.
But the greatest enemy to community policing is the lack of resources. So if you only have 5,300 police officers trying to cover 640 square miles, fewer police than we had 10 years ago, then we have a problem. In Chicago, for example, they have over 11,000 police officers.
Wow.
Okay, we have 5,300. But that's just one part of the equation.
Okay.
Providing more police is not going to solve all of our communal societal issues.
Right.
Instituting values, a lot of that starts at home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's important. Creating what I call better neighborhoods, where even kids and others feel as though they have opportunities to succeed. Helping people to resolve their conflicts without having to turn to violence or pick up some gun to do that. As the mayor of this city, I can pass an ordinance, but it's very difficult for me to create a value system that values life,
Right.
and a respect for life. I can speak to it, and I certainly would.
Good.
But I think that's where we have to form partnerships with our faith-based communities, our churches, the nonprofits,
And even the
media, community leaders. It's simply saying that as we've said many, many times, it does take a village to raise that child.
Right.
It will take all of us to create an environment that values human life and respects the dignity of everyone within the city of Houston and beyond. So it's a lot of work that we need to do, but we do need to change the laws that make it so easy for people to have access to their guns.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think this is probably going to be my last question. Immigration.
Yeah.
If I don't talk about immigration with you, I think that I would be doing the city of Houston a big disservice, because we are in the fourth largest city in the United States of America, and our state is on the border of the United States and Mexico. And so we have intrusion from land and sea, and maybe even air, who knows. But so, I mean, how do you intend to make this a comfortable topic when
Well, I don't know if, number one, we're not going to resolve it at the city level. Okay. The country is in need of comprehensive immigration reform.
Okay.
Just like we talked about guns. You're not necessarily going to solve the problems that spur from that at the city level.
Okay.
Immigration is another one of those issues. Until the feds the people in Washington come up with comprehensive immigration reform, it's going to make it very difficult for cities and states to do much more than that. Okay. We have people that are coming from all over the globe seeking better opportunities.
Right.
Now, when you come to the city of Houston, you come to the state of Texas, we don't inquire whether or not you are documented or not. If you're coming and bring your kids to our school system,
right?
We accept you into our school system.
And that's a good thing.
If you are sick and you need to go to the emergency room, we don't ask you whether or not you are documented or not. You're in need of care. The hospitals, emergency rooms have an obligation to treat you. Right. If you're driving on the streets of the city of Houston, police cannot just stop you to profile you, to ask you whether or not you're documented or not, or whether or not you're a United States citizen. Now, if they stop you for committing some particular crime, and during the course of that booking they discover that you are not legally here, then that becomes a different scenario. Okay. But we need comprehensive immigration reform. Otherwise, people will continue to come, and it will be an issue that we will continue to grapple with. From my vantage point, in terms of being mayor, I cannot be the immigration police. What I can say to you that if you're in the city of Houston, as mayor, I have an obligation to represent you, and I have an obligation to provide you with the tools that you need in order to succeed, to take care of yourself as well as your families. That's my obligation. As mayor, for those who are in the city of Houston, within the 640 square miles, I want this city to be a welcoming city. What I would ask the people here, regardless of whether or not they are a United States citizen or not, is to follow our laws, work hard, be a positive asset to the city of Houston. Exercise your gifts and talents that the good Lord have given you, and then provide value to the city of Houston. Be value added and not a deficit. To the extent that takes place, then I see you as an Houstonian first, and then I will do everything I can to provide you with a city that you can be proud of, and a city whose future will be brighter than its past.
Wow, thank you so much. This has been eye-opening and very interesting conversation with you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
If any other candidates come your way between now and election time, they are simply coming your way to say hello to you. But when it comes to being the next mayor of the city of Houston, you are looking at him, and his name is Sylvester Turner.
So viewers, we've come to the end of this very special report with Mr. Sylvester Turner, your next mayor.
Call those things that are not as though they are.
So from everyone here in the building, we want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to what Mr. Turner has to say. We want to encourage you and urge you to go out there and vote, and also take into heart everything that Mr. Turner has said right here today. God bless you. Until next time.